Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Confusion to Wisdom. Guy with the long beard, Ardeshir Mehtah. He's a life coach and he will be dispensing most of the wisdom. I might have a little bit here and there to offer. Hi, I'm Eleanor Bell and my YouTube channel is called Canada US Tango if you ever want to know about the crap going on between Canada and the United States. So anyway, I have gathered some questions that Ardeshir has already answered through the internet on Quora. Might have a couple of Yahoo questions too. So I will just go ahead and ask. This show is completely unscripted. We just film it and it's going to be what it's going to be. So we just do the one run through and it's going to be however it's going to be. So if there's like imperfections or whatever, yeah, we don't do redos. So the only scripted part is I actually look for the questions that I think people will find the most interesting or will relate to the most, or seems to be a question that a lot of people have in their minds. That's kind of the only scripted part. That's about it. Okay, so let's go to the first question. Can a covert narcissist stepfather turn your teenage daughters into narcissists as well?
And now this question of narcissism is in my mind. Let's put it this way. I don't think narcissism is a disorder. We are all born narcissists. You ever seen a newborn that gives a shit about keeping you up all night by wailing? I mean, come on. All newborns are narcissists. And everyone was a newborn once. We lose this absolutely delightful quality by thinking we should be careful about what we do and what we say and how we relate to others. The fact that newborns are narcissists is what makes them endearing. It's a good thing to be a narcissist, in other words. There's nothing wrong with it. On the contrary, it's wrong not to be a narcissist. It's not a disorder. It's the way natural things are.
Could you be confusing self-interest with narcissism? An infant being helpless has to have very strong self-interest in order to have their needs met. So, because I'm wondering if there's a distinction to be made, because I'm thinking this person is referring to someone who may actually have an actual like personality disorder.
But who defines it as a disorder? Look, at one time, other things which are today considered perfectly normal, such as homosexuality and masturbation, were considered to be disorders. They were even called disorders in the manuals of the psychological professionals.
And yet, very true.
Now we know they're not disorders.
But could that have been informed by puritanical ideas more than...
Sure. Let me finish. The point is, today, those who are selfish are called narcissistic disorder personalities because the other people don't like them to be that way. It's other people who are judging them.
Oh, so you don't think there's
nothing wrong with being selfish.
So you don't think there's some people that are like to such an extreme narcissism that it makes it dysfunctional for the people around them? You don't think that exists? Is what you mean?
If it is, it does exist, but the problem is not for the person concerned, it's for the people around them. They can just avoid such people. As far as I'm concerned, I'd much rather have a relationship with a person who I know is going to put himself ahead of everybody else, because that's what I do. I put myself ahead of everybody else because that's the healthy thing to do. But I have no problem with relating to people. I have no problem because I know that they should put themselves ahead of everyone else also.
See, I think part of the narcissism, it depends on what the person means by the word, and I think this is where we're getting bogged down.
Possibly.
The sense of the narcissism that I think they may be saying the word is someone who, for example, gets into a severe temper tantrum when they don't get their way, and they're completely convinced that no matter what happens, it's never their fault, it's always somebody else.
So what? I mean, why don't you simply avoid such people? What's the point in being around such people?
Okay, so the specific...
What's the point in being around anyone whom you don't like?
Okay, so I think the specific question this person wants to address is... Now, I don't know if they're the father of the teenage daughters that they're talking about, so I'm going to guess that it might be a father who has daughters. Maybe he's divorced, his wife is remarried, and their stepfather he perceives as being extremely narcissistic. So, yeah, I guess there's so many definitions of it. It really is a way overused word. So I think the problem is we're not sure what he's asking. I'm going to assume that he's actually asking about an actual situation where it's someone who loses their temper when they don't get their way, and so on and so forth. Can their daughters... Their daughters would only be made that way. It would be more if they're traumatized enough, they might get borderline personality disorder, which can make them very, self-interested to an extreme. But that would only be if they're traumatized. My thinking on this, if you're the dad writing this question, I don't think the stepfather can turn them into narcissists. I don't think it's that kind of a relationship thing. If he manages to severely traumatize them to the point where they get, they're severely traumatized, then they could become very self-interested as a defense mechanism to being severely traumatized. But I mean, assuming he's just being a run-of-the-mill asshole narcissist who loses his temper when he doesn't get his way, no, he's not going to make your daughter sick. That's my take on that.
Not only that, but why worry about people losing their temper? People lose their temper all the time. Just ignore them. It's not that hard to ignore.
I think the fact, too, that his daughters are, if it's a father writing this, his daughters are teenagers. They already have a lot of strength.
Teenagers already have problems of hormonal nature anyway.
Well, no, I'm saying they didn't have to grow
out in different ways.
Because they didn't have to grow up as small children with this narcissistic person. It's a lot less likely that he can traumatize them. That's all I'm thinking. But
well, I'm thinking that it really doesn't even matter. I don't think the father has narcissistic disorder either. A person who has temper tantrums should be called having a temper tantrum disorder, not a narcissistic personality disorder. Temper tantrums are a disorder, especially if you can't...
Excuse me. In terms of the
disorder
formal psychiatric manual, part and parcel of having that narcissism disorder is that you do have temper tantrums, because basically anytime something doesn't go your way, you're angry and you lash out.
That's fine, but the disorder is the temper.
Mind you, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I just want to emphasize that to everybody. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I do have a lot of education. I do have a lot of informal working with adults, but
I'm not one
either,
but I don't think the psychiatrists are right, because I was having a discussion with a chap who claimed to be a psychiatrist in exactly this subject, and I said, I totally disagree with you when you say this is a disorder. It's not a disorder. The disorders are the things that you say they do, which are antisocial. That I can get, but those things have got nothing to do with their being narcissistic. They are disorders whether they were narcissistic or not. A temper tantrum, a person who indulges in temper tantrums has a disorder whether they are narcissistic or not. And the disorder is the temper tantrum. And the psychologists and psychiatrists, are looking for something behind the disorder, and there is nothing behind the disorder. The disorder is the temper tantrum.
And sometimes you have to wonder too, because I mean, one disorder they've come up with is something called oppositional disorder, which just means a stubborn child.
Totally stupid. Why should someone not oppose something that they think should be opposed?
I actually sometimes wonder about that.
Would be a prime candidate for oppositional disorder.
When I first heard about this oppositional disorder thing, I thought, oh, that just means stubborn kid. Anyway.
Stubborn kid or stubborn adult. Gandhi and Martin Luther King would be prime candidates for being labeled as having oppositional disorder.
I mean, you do make a good point. This official psychiatric disorder, I know it's got an official name, which I can't think of off the top of my tongue.
Yeah, I forget the name of it,
but I mean, it constantly gets updated and changed, and
I think it's total bullshit. Frankly, I think the whole damn thing is.
But anyway, it probably had, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next question.
Right.
I thought that was a really fascinating discussion, actually. That was really interesting.
What was my answer, by the way? My printed answer?
Very similar to what you said, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, very similar. Okay, so the next question. What is homework supposed to accomplish? Could we not just add 30 minutes to school time instead?
Yeah, I answered that just today, I think. The whole thing is school is the big problem. The question is, what is school intended to accomplish? And if you look at the literature about people who've done this subject, like John Gatto, for example, the intention of school is to brainwash kids. That was the original intention. Look at the book called I think it's called The Unwritten History of American Schools or something like that by John Gatto, Gatto. Just research, Google the word Gatto, and you'll probably get this. And he makes it very clear that schools are supposed to brainwash kids, especially into mediocrity, so that they will not be oppositional. And that is the whole purpose of schooling. Look, I'm not railing against schooling because I was bad at it. In fact, I was very good at it. I was at the top of my class in school.
Yeah, you were
far ahead of the top of my class that the second guy didn't have a hope in hell of even catching up with me. I was that far good in school, that good in school. And I did very well at university too. I graduated with honors. But none of that has ever served me in any positive way. The only way it served me was in finding out how bad it was by reading other things outside of school. Mm-hmm. All the stuff that has actually served me has come from my reading and my actual life experiences outside of school.
Well, certainly the reading, arithmetic, writing are obviously very useful and practical, but I understand what you're saying.
They can be taught outside school as well. They don't need to be taught within school. A school is not where that you should be going to learn those things.
Well, certainly homeschooling.
Even today, where schools are prolific, the people who accomplish the most are either dropouts like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or even Bill Gates, or if you look at the past, they never went to school in the first place. The Buddha didn't go to school. Jesus never went to school. Lao Tzu never went to school. These are the wisest people who have ever lived. Socrates never went to school. Aristotle didn't go to school, though he established a school. Plato established a school too, but he never went to school himself. And the only person who actually benefited from Plato's school was Aristotle, actually. Yeah. So Aristotle did go to Plato's school, but then he established his own school. But no good came of that. No wise person has ever been a graduate of Aristotle's school.
I know for myself, I think the North American model would be way better served if they adopted what they have maybe in Poland or Finland, particularly Finland. Basically, the kids are in school in the morning, and some of the time they're outside playing for that.
Yeah, that's right.
And they should adopt it, because you know what? They only educate those kids for half a day. And guess what? They're successful adults. They're doctors. They're engineers.
essentially...
So what are they doing in Finland that we could adapt to North America? Because our kids are in school all day, and then they got hours of homework after. In Finland, they don't send the kids home with homework, and they're fine.
Molly, there's another question that I answered, which is related to this, is that children do not learn from being taught stuff in school. They learn from doing, and therefore they learn most from play, because play is always doing. In fact, at my university in Israel, one of my professors told me, look, I know that whatever I say in the classroom is just going to be forgotten by you, because I know these three principles. What you hear, you forget. What you see, you remember. But what you do, you know. So I'm going to make you do things so that you actually learn in my class.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it is by play that children learn, not by being taught in a classroom, by hearing things. That's not how they learn.
Maybe that's why the Finland system is so good, because the kids get lots of time to run around and play. So
that's right. It's play that makes it possible.
I wish they would adapt it here, because you know what? Half a day, I think, is plenty of school for kids. I mean, really, they don't need more than half a day. So no. I mean, it works in Finland. So
it works in Finland, and it used to work all over the world.
Well, interestingly enough, if you homeschool, let's say you have one kid at home and you're homeschooling them, you're done in 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Easily.
That's it.
Easily.
Because my brother married into a family, and the youngest child, the mother took her out of school because she was actually having problems in school and she was struggling and wasn't learning. So she took her child out of school and decided, well, I'm going to homeschool her because she's not learning in your school. She's having a terrible time. And she said 90 minutes a day, that's all it takes to teach her kid. And this is a child who wasn't succeeding at school.
Yeah.
And she said, we do schoolwork 90 minutes a day, and then the rest of the day we're just doing stuff. We're baking, we're going to museums, we're out on the land, we're just doing all kinds of different activities. Guess what? Her kid successfully finished school, no problem. Like, she ended up going to high school. Because her mother didn't feel qualified to teach high school, so at grade 9, her daughter went into high school and she did fine. She had no problem. So yeah,
totally. And there's absolutely no benefit from schooling. So the question should not be what is the benefit of homework. The question should be, what is the benefit of school at all? There is one benefit which I can see to the parents. If both parents are working, they don't have time to look after the kids at home. So it's a glorified babysitting service. And that I will grant you. Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's the funniest video I've ever saw about a mother who's like buying stuff. The shopping list of what the teachers want for the kids to go back to school.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny as heck. She's saying, they're going to take care of your kids. Get them whatever they want. Anyway, it's really funny. Just go look up. How would you type it in a search engine? I don't know. Kids returning to school. Mothers happy kids are returning to school. I'm not sure. I don't recall what the video is called. But anyway, if I find it, I'll put a link to it for people to watch. It's one of the most hilarious videos I've ever seen. So anyway, yeah, so I guess we've pretty much covered that. Yeah, if you're self-employed or you're home full-time and you have the option of homeschooling your kids, that's one option. Or send them to our crappy North American schools. But anyway, this was a really interesting discussion, yeah.
I would even say homeschooling is not necessary. Even the 90 minutes is not necessary, because kids will learn on their own. They are very, very inquisitive by nature. And they will find a way to learn what they need to learn.
Put them in front of World of Warcraft and they'll bug you to teach them the maths and the reading skills and how to World of Warcraft actually is really interesting because it teaches you. There's kids that learn. There's kids playing that, especially if they join a guild and they work their way up. They learn a lot of leadership skills, and you're in teams and stuff like that. Yeah, so I know the first.
I'd say just give them video games and they will learn on their own.
Okay, so anyway, so we'll go to the next question. And this question Wow, this just knocked me on my ass, I tell you. Okay, what's the most acceptable way to make our kids understand that we don't like them anymore?
You
Okay.
just tell them. You tell them straight out. They'll tell you straight out if they don't like you. Do they ever mince words when they're telling you straight up, go fuck yourself? I mean, come on. Teenagers are famous for doing that. You have to talk to the kids the way they talk to you.
Okay,
Otherwise,
teenagers are as crazy as toddlers, except with bigger bodies and more knowledge to harm themselves. So
that is the best thing they should be. That is what they should be. That's why nature makes them that way, obnoxious. Children should be obnoxious.
I guess I'm thinking. I'm reading that. What's the most acceptable way to make our kids understand that we don't like them anymore? I mean, that's pretty friggin' profound.
No.
I want to know why do the parents, first of all, why do the parents want to tell their kids, we don't like you?
Well, obviously the kids are behaving in a manner the parents don't like. That's the only reason you never like someone. Look, the fact is you, not just you, but anybody judges other people by their behavior because they have no way to read their thoughts.
Okay, so what's the most acceptable way to make... Okay, so for you, you just say, I don't like you. That's what you tell them.
Yeah, I said, sorry, I don't like you. Big enough. That's straightforward, and the kids understand it. The kids are happy when you talk to them the way they talk to you because that is their language.
I'm assuming, I hope that these children are all... Okay, here's the assumption I'm going to make, and I hope it's the correct assumption, because if you're wanting to tell your 10-year-old, your 4 to 12-year-old kids that you don't like them, that's deranged. Find them foster homes if that's what you got to do.
I don't think so. It's not deranged at all. It's a question of whether you want to be upfront with your kids or whether you want to hide your emotions from your kids. I think the most parents think that they should not be upfront with
their kids. Yeah, but can't you tell a child, let's say the child has behavior that is really aggravating you. Wouldn't it be more accurate to say, I don't like this behavior that you're doing, and this is why I don't like it?
It would be.
If they're a small kid, especially if they're a small kid.
But the question is that what you are actually feeling? If the parent actually feels that it's not just their behavior, but that their personality that they don't like, then they should just come out and say so.
I think it's okay to, especially when kids are, small, it's totally fine to say, you know what, I'm really upset with you right now, and I need some time away from you because I'm really frustrated with you right now.
Oh, that is a lot better. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying...
Because I agree with you. You have to be able to express your feelings. And if your 4-year-old is driving you absolutely insane and you're to the point where you think you're going to murder them, I would much rather you say, hey, you're frustrating me so bad right now, I need a few minutes time out from you. I need to get away from you for a few minutes. That's a lot better than hitting them or telling them that you hate them.
And remember, there's always the possibility of apologizing later and making up.
Well, yeah, because, parents are going to make mistakes. Kids don't come with manuals. They don't. As you well know, because you've raised kids. I've raised kids. They don't. Anyone out there who's wondering, when you push that kid out of your body, there's no manual that comes out with it, okay? Just heads up there, everybody. Okay, now, let's switch the question, because I think you and I both agree that when they're small, they're young kids, it's totally okay to say, hey, you're frustrating me, you're pissing me off, I need a timeout from you. That it's okay to express feelings, but you do it at age-appropriate levels. So I think you and I both agree on that. Okay, so now let's talk about adult children, because maybe this is a married couple. Let's pretend this is a married couple who are asking about their adult children. So they've raised their family, the kids are adults, and the parents think, our kids are assholes, we hate them.
Well, okay,
so
that's fine too.
Let's assume the kids are all over, I don't know, they're all over 22. Whatever. Their brains are fully developed. And that's, I think, early 20s, your brain is finally developed. You're past the teenage asshole years. So let's say they're 20s and older. They're kids. So their brains are fully developed, and the parents are looking at them thinking, you know what? Our kids are still assholes.
Yeah.
We really don't like them. So let's pretend the kids are all adults. So what's the most acceptable way to make our kids understand that we don't like them anymore?
Again, say them, because they are now adults and therefore treat them like any other adult. Just say, I don't like you.
Can you love your children but also not like them at the same time?
No, but
it's not possible.
There are people who don't love their children. You see, someone asked on Quora a question, how do you explain to your child what love is? And I said, well, you tell them that love is light on steroids. Love, the word love, and in quotes, is the word like, in quotes, on steroids. A child knows what like means.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, they will understand that if you like someone very, very much, then you love them.
Okay.
So you cannot love someone and not like them. That is impossible.
Okay.
But on the other hand, it is quite possible that you don't love them at all. And it is not a given that a parent will love their child at all times, especially after they are grown up. It's not a given.
So, what are all the way? Okay, so there's just outright saying, "I don't like you."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way of dealing with it. Probably a big clue is if you never send the money anymore.
Well, of course. Why the hell would you send them money if you don't like them?
Mind you, there are some parents that do deeply love their children, but after a certain age, they don't send money. So that's not necessarily always a clue.
That's different.
But if your parent, you know, if let's say you're an adult child, and you're such an asshole that your parents don't like you, okay, if they tell you they don't like you and they're not sending you any money, even though you're on the street with nothing to eat, that could be a clue they don't like you anymore.
Well, that is true.
If your parents don't send you Christmas cards or gifts, that's a clue they may not like you.
That's real.
Okay, that's obviously a Christian joke. I mean, there's Buddhists and Muslims and whatever, but
anyway, also, I don't think that parents should send their children money. Parents should be raising their children so that by the time they're adults, they make their own money.
Well, you want your children to be successful and self-sufficient, although it often happens that, you know, you may still end up sending the money or whatever. But yeah, I mean, obviously you want your children to be successful. You want them to be self-sufficient. You want it so that if something, you know, if you're a parent, if something happens to you, you want your kids to be okay. Unless you don't like them. And then you just don't care.
Quite right.
Okay, so how would I guess I would just, I would tell these parents, I guess what I would do is if they were in front of me saying how my kids are adults, they're in their 20s and older, and we really just don't like them, you know, how do we tell them? I would probably want to ask them, what is your goal? What is your end goal in telling them that? Is it because you plan to not have them in your will and you want them to know not to expect anything because you just think they're just assholes? Or like, what is your end goal? I guess that's what I'd want to explore with them. What is it you hope to accomplish? Because that would frame how they're going to answer the question.
I think so.
If it's about that they've been deeply hurt, traumatized, or exhausted, maybe their kids have been in and out of jail since they were kids. Maybe they just exhausted the parents to such a point. And maybe what would help is if the parent can actually really dig deep, like, why don't you like your kids? What do you want to accomplish? So, because it can happen, and this does happen, where parents have the best of intentions. They really want to love their kids, and they just are so fucking tired They're in jail. They're calling them from jail. They have to pay huge fines. They got to hire lawyers, and maybe just eventually they're just finally so tired. The kid, like, they're constantly calling, where's my kid? It's 3 a.m. They're not home yet. And maybe after a while, the parents just get so worn out. It's like they're burnt out. They're just completely, absolutely, and utterly burnt out. And if that's the situation that they're in, like, we're just so fucking burnt out, we can't stand our fucking kids anymore. I would say, you know what? You should tell them that.
Yeah.
Tell them how you feel. How you feel. So, and focus on how you feel. So it's not about saying, you did this to us. It's about when this happened, when you were going through your difficult teenage years, this is how it impacted on us. This is how we felt. As opposed to, you did this to us, you made us hate you. Because that's not really going to explain what happened to the kids, as tempting as that is to say it. But rather focus on your feelings and how you responded. And just state it matter-of-factly. Don't try to make it an oppositional, whose fault is this? Because you know what? It doesn't matter. It's about how the parents are feeling. And how they've responded to the situation. Because if they have this absolutely honest conversation about how they're feeling without pointing at the kids saying, you did this. Because sometimes our responses can traumatize us way more than what our shitty kid did. So make sure you keep it to, I would suggest to them, keep it to how you're feeling, how you responded to the situation. And just have this really honest conversation with the kids. And who knows, they may come back with a plan of action to earn your trust back. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, there's nothing to lose by being honest and expressing your feelings and saying this is what happened. But if you're going to have this conversation with your children, don't expect anything. Don't expect some fucking miracle and all of a sudden they're going to turn into angels. Like, just don't have any expectations going into it. Just go into it. Honestly say what happened to you, why you feel the way you do, but try not to do it in a blaming fashion. You don't want the kids defending themselves and arguing about your feelings. You just want to express to your kids, this is why we don't like you. And you might use the words, we don't like you, or you might be able to say it in a different way. You might just have a conversation about the pain you're in, what you're feeling, why you're frustrated, why you're angry, how you interpreted it. When this happened, this is how I felt inside. Take ownership of your feelings.
Okay, Molly, may I point out that it's been 40 minutes? So, do you want to carry on or cut it short here?
All right. Well, we can finish now. I guess 40 minutes is enough. I had a lot of fun doing this.
All right.
So, all right, everybody. Until next time. This is Confusion to Wisdom, and yeah, we'll do this again. Bye for now.
Bye.